Welcome in to the Corner 3, taking you around the arc of college basketball. From the NCAAT to the Pac-12, the WCC to the SWAC. We cover it all now on 93.7 The Ticket. Here is your host, Austin Oerman.
That's right. Good evening, beautiful people listening to the Corner 3. It is Austin Oerman back with you. If you've been listening here to The Ticket, you might wonder why it is I am coming to you while I'm on vacation with some family. Well, I did record this ahead of time. Seems like it should be a pretty timeless episode. At the very least, the very first segment should be. Maybe the first two segments, depends on how long it takes me to go through some of what we're going through in the first segment. Now, the second topic on tap for today is one that we could have an update on by the end of the week. I wish I could have recorded this later. Hope to get a guest or two on, not just maybe this show, but also On the Block or Old School to discuss the news around NCAA tournament expansion. We'll touch on that a little bit later in the show. Really, really good article written by Matt Norlander of CBS Sports. No shocker there. Lander's really good at what he does. But when it comes to NCAA tournament expansion, he's been against it for a while, as have a lot of prominent voices, including Nebraska head basketball coach Fred Hoiberg. But Matt Norlander pulled some data that I think is definitely going to be worth us spending some time to go over, and why he thinks it is that the 64 or now 68 team tournament is the way it should be, the way it should stay. And then again, that'll be later on in the show. If you want to comment, have any questions about what it is we're doing here, you can let me know on Twitter at Austin_Oerman. Yeah, I'm on vacation with the family, but I got time for you. You're loyal listeners. Truly, it does mean the world to me that you take time out of your day. Maybe it's while you're doing chores, it's on in the background. Maybe it's while you're driving around, whatever it is. Truly, truly from the bottom of my heart, thank you for making the Corner 3 a part of your life, a part of your day, part of your routine, especially here during the summer where there's not a lot going on in college basketball, but we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We really, truly can. Just a couple more weeks of filler summer kind of content. Then we can really start getting into the nitty-gritty of conference previews, of player of the year race, all sorts of fun stuff like that. Today's episode, though, the meat and potatoes of it, is going to be based off a tweet I saw from Ant Wright, Big Ten guy on Twitter, following tweeting about it quite a bit, and national college basketball, of course. But on the night of the NBA draft, once Walter Clayton Jr. was selected by the Wizards before being traded to the Jazz, Ant Wright mentioned that, okay, that continues a streak of every national champion, at least in the modern era, of having a top 30 NBA draft pick come from that team. Like I said, it was Walter Clayton Jr. for Florida. And that got me thinking, who are some of the best players that have gone in the top 30 from national champions? And what would teams of these guys look like? So what I did was I sat down and I went through in 5-year increments. And I put together teams based on the top 30 draft picks just from the national champion that year. So, for example, the most recent team that I have put together is 2021 through 2025. So if we go in reverse chronological order, you get Walter Clayton Jr. from Florida. I put Stephon Castle from 2024 UConn in that list because Donovan Clingan came back for his sophomore year. I'm going to count him for the 2023 UConn pick. My rules, my game, that's how I decided to play it out, partially to help me build the best team possible. Ochai Agbaji from Kansas then in 2022, and then the 2021 Baylor representative ended up being Davion Mitchell. The other guy then that I threw on the bench from this most recent crop was Jordan Hawkins, sniper that helped propel UConn to that first national championship in 2023. So that's what it is we're going to be doing. We'll be taking this in 5-year increments, right? Starting 5 for each team. So pick 5 players. Of course, there are some teams in there with multiple first-round draft picks from national championship teams. I picked the one, not that was drafted the highest necessarily, but the one that I think would make the team fit together the best. We will really run into that in 2011 to 2015, a little bit in 2006 to 2010, and 2001 to 2005. But before we dive more into the teams, just some of the broad overviews of this exercise. Number one, there's only a handful of teams with multiple guys drafted in the top 30 in the following year's NBA draft, or even 2 years down the road. And that number has continued to decrease since the first year, the first batch of this exercise. As I look at this 2001 to 2005 team, right, you have the starting five, but then I count another 12 players just off national champions in those 5 years that got drafted inside the NBA draft top 30. You move that along to 2006 to 2010's group, you knock 3 spots off of that. It goes down to 9. Another 3 bench spots come off the board in 2011 to 2015. Another 3 come off the board from 2016 to 2020. And then all the way down to just 1 player. So far, right, I mean, there's still guys from this Florida team that returned that could be top 30 draft picks next year. But at the time of this recording, maybe I missed a guy, maybe I didn't. I just have 1 bench option for this 2021 to 2025 team. And I wonder, partially why that is. I think back to that 2001 to 2005 era, you had some prep to pros going on, right? So some of those, top draft picks ended up skipping college. So then you had maybe the opportunity for some older players to put up numbers that they wouldn't have been able to put up if, say, LeBron James or Dwight Howard, for example, had gone to college. You also think about the infusion of international talent to not just the college basketball ranks, but the NBA draft ranks, right? I know on this show we've talked a lot about the infusion of talent from overseas to college basketball rosters so far this year, and that's fine, but there haven't been many of those international players winning national championships and then getting drafted, right? I'm trying to think back through when a top 30 draft pick from overseas won a national championship. I'm sure there's an easy one or two that I'm missing, but they don't come to mind that rapidly. So I think that when you look back to top 30 picks from national champions, some of the reasons that they're dwindling is I think there's less of a premium placed on that winning college player, right? You think about some of those guys from 2001 to 2005, right? A Marcus Williams, Hakeem Warwick, Chris Wilcox, guys like that. There's less of a premium placed on them. Cole Aldrich. Would Cole Aldrich be a guy that gets drafted in the top 30 in the modern NBA? I don't think so. So I think just seeing the evolution of the NBA, right, away from your Cole Aldrich, your Tyler Zeller types, to focusing more on, these one and dones, right, who haven't won a lot of national championships, especially recently. There's an exception I mentioned already, right? Stephon Castle at UConn. But you look at one and dones not winning national championships. You look at a lot more drafting being based off of potential instead of production. And you look at the proliferation of basketball overseas, right? I know it didn't just start in the 2000s, right? I know there are plenty of fantastic international basketball players in the NBA, especially in the NBA draft process, right? In the 80s, in the 90s, and continuing on into the 2000s. But you look at some of these names of guys, they probably wouldn't be first-round picks in the modern NBA for that variety of reasons. And that's why maybe I think some of these numbers have dwindled down. But without further ado, the last little bit of setup that I have to mention here, because it'll pop up pretty quickly into the episode, is that we've had 26 college basketball national champions crowned in the 2000s, because I was going based off NCAA tournament year. So that means that we had to include the 2000 national championship. So you would think that would give us 26 national champions for 25 spots. So someone was going to have to get cut. Someone's going to have to get benched. Except it worked out really well, pretty much on accident. I'm not going to lie. The way that I set this draft up was I went through 2021 through 2025 first. There's your 5 years. Then I went 2016 to 2020. Well, this is where we run into a bit of a speed bump, is that there was no NCAA tournament in 2020, no champion crowned. But I wanted to keep the math the same, right? Because I worked backwards, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21. Okay, there's 5 years. Then I need 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11 is a team, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 is a team. That gets me to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So there's a national champion missing, and that's 2000 Michigan State. Now, had they not had a top 30 NBA draft pick on that team, you know what? I would have said, forget about it. We don't need him. It's all right. We'll write him off. So be it. So it goes. Except that, like I said, the 2020 tournament never happened. And so because of that, it gives me the perfect, and I mean perfect, opportunity to add 2 players that got drafted in the top 30 from that 2000 Michigan State team to the team, the players that would have been playing in college basketball from 2016 to 2019. So I gave you my 2021 to 2025 team, just for a refresher. Walter Clayton Jr. from Florida, Stephon Castle, Donovan Clingan from the UConn back-to-back, Ochai Agbaji from Kansas's title in 2022, and Davion Mitchell from Baylor's title in 2021. The bench player that I have for them is Jordan Hawkins. So now we get into the weirdness, right? 2016 to 2019. Without the 2020 tournament being played, this is where I slot in the players from 2000 Michigan State. So in 2016, I took Josh Hart because Jalen Brunson, of course, was not a first-round pick. And I think Josh Hart was just the best of those guys in that year. 2017, Carolina, you take Justin Jackson. 2018, you go with Mikal Bridges from Villanova's 2 out of 3. 2019, I think DeAndre Hunter is the pick. He might have been the only first-rounder on that Virginia team. But either way, I think he does a really good job of filling out the team. And this is where my working backwards ended up working pretty perfectly for me. Because if you look at this group, they need a point guard. Desperately need a point guard. I'm sorry, I'm not running Josh Hart at point guard. I'm not making Justin Jackson do that. This is where Mateen Cleaves is going to fit in. It works out really well to run Mateen Cleaves at point. We can put probably DeAndre Hunter at the 2. I mean, this is a huge lineup. Then I probably would go with Mikal Bridges at the 3, Justin Jackson at the 4, and we might have to play small ball with Josh Hart. But the other option that I think I have to do as I'm looking at this now is that even if Mikal Bridges is the best player on that 2018 Villanova title team, we need a big man. And so I'm going to, live here on air, I'm going to bump Omari Spellman out of the bench. He was, I think, a bottom 10 pick in the first round from that 20 to 30 range. And I'm going to move Mikal Bridges to the bench because we have guys with wing length, and Justin Jackson, DeAndre Hunter, and even Josh Hart can moonlight as a 3 if he needs to. We need some size. We need someone in the middle. He's a stretch 4.5 to a 5. So Mikal Bridges is clearly the better player, but Omari Spellman makes more sense for this team. So the starting lineup then would be Mateen Cleaves, DeAndre Hunter, Omari Spellman, Justin Jackson, and Josh Hart, leaving me a bench of 3 players, right? Mikal Bridges that we already mentioned, Morris Peterson, and if that's a name that you don't know, that's okay, neither did I. Let me just pull up my Morris Peterson refresher. He was a shooting guard drafted out of Michigan State from that national title team in 2000. And then there's one other player that didn't go 20th or 21st like Morris Peterson did. He went top 5. And that's Jason Richardson. What a luxury to be able to bring Jason Richardson in off the bench. Again, if this is pure talent and this is just team fit, obviously Jason Richardson would be my starting shooting guard. But since I wanted to get one player from each team in the starting lineup, Jason Richardson and Mikal Bridges, both, maybe the best player on the title team. Maybe you can argue it was Mateen Cleaves for Michigan State. But I got to bump those 2 guys down to the bench. I still think that's a pretty solid unit in Cleaves, Hunter, Spellman, Jackson, and Hart. That's a pretty fun team. I'm glad it worked out for me to be able to get some 2000 Michigan State representation here on this list. We'll get through this 2011 to 2015 team here to finish out this segment. Then we'll go through the 2 final teams, some of the tough decisions for them, and kind of break down the matchups between these 2 teams before we talk about the NCAA tournament expansion news in the final segment of the show. So 2011 to 2015, again, having to draft a little bit based off of fit, right, with one player from each title-winning team. You get a Duke team, two UConn teams, a Kentucky team, and I am still going to give the credit to Louisville. I'm not going to pick off the Michigan roster. I'm going to go with Louisville. We all watched the game. We saw it go down. We also know what happened off the court. But this is a really, really interesting team. Working again, reverse chronologically, it's Justice Winslow is my pick from Duke because you have two UConn guards, Shabazz Napier in 2014, Kemba Walker, obviously, in 2011. Slam dunk, no-brainer picks for what they did, basically single-handedly carrying those teams to titles. You got to include both those guys. Gorgie Jang might not have been the best player, was certainly one of the most important players for that title team for Louisville in 2013. And then the 2011-12 season, maybe the no-brainer of no-brainers on this list, Anthony Davis anchoring the middle. So, sorry, Jahlil Okafor, you got to hit the bench for Anthony Davis. Sorry, Tyus Jones, maybe my all-time favorite college basketball player. You got to hit the bench for Cardiac Kemba. Plain and simple, that's what it comes down to. I really like this 2011 to 2015 group. I mentioned Tyus Jones, Jahlil Okafor on the bench already. Grayson Allen also ended up being a top 30 pick, not that year, later on, a few years down the road, but he was a top 30 guy, so I'm going to throw him into consideration on the bench. Terrence Jones, Marquise Teague, and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist from Kentucky are the other players then that round out the bench. And what you'll notice is that the entire bench comes from 2014 and 2012, or 2015 Duke and 2012 Kentucky. Shabazz Napier didn't play with another top 30 pick. Kemba Walker didn't play with another top 30 pick. And neither Russ Smith nor Peyton Siva ended up being first rounders for that 2013 Louisville team. I also believe Trez Harrell was on that 12-13 Louisville team, but he ended up sliding into the second round. So he was not eligible for this draft. So if this was me putting together the team for the best construction, I would probably throw Michael Kidd-Gilchrist into the starting lineup instead of Gorgie Jang, because I think Anthony Davis being the rim protector goes a long way. Justice Winslow played a lot of power forward for Duke that year. He played the three quite a bit as well, but he played enough for that I'm comfortable putting him there, except that he's the three in this lineup because of Gorgie Jang, who doesn't have quite the perimeter skills that Justice Winslow did. And then starting Kemba Walker and Shabazz Napier, who, I mean, Shabazz played the Kemba role a few years later for UConn, so maybe there's a little bit of redundancy there, but neither Kemba Walker nor Shabazz Napier are that big. Grayson Allen, I don't think was as good as those guys, especially in the year that we're talking about, right, that he'd have to be drafted in 2015. Tyus Jones he was clutch like Kemba, maybe not as nationally renowned, right, for Cardiac Kemba, the 5 games in 5 days that UConn had to win just to make the NCAA tournament. Again, my life is on the line. I'm giving the ball to Tyus Jones for how many times he came up clutch for Duke, but I cannot in good conscience and good faith, make the homer pick in this situation. I got to go with Kemba Walker. So we're through 3 teams. We are through the year 2011. We got the 2006 through 2010 team and the 2001 through 2005 team to get to. A lot of decisions had to be made in this one. A lot of good players with really good college stats that got left on the bench. We'll give you those next 2 teams. We'll give you kind of the breakdown of these teams and which team I would pick to enter into an NCAA tournament with the best chance to win. We'll go over that and more when we return to the Corner 3.
Are you looking to upgrade or improve the garage door on your home? This is Cameron Hall of Doors Plus. At Doors Plus, we guarantee to offer a wide selection of options from 5 leading garage door manufacturers as we deliver a free estimate, exact measurements, and rapid installation with a 3 to 5 week time frame. When you choose Doors Plus for your residential garage door needs, you'll work with our experienced technicians and be ensured that your new door seamlessly complements your home. Give us a call at 402-590-5800 or visit us online at DoorsPlusLLC.com. Doors Plus, garage doors and more.
At Fairway Meat Market, you're family, and as part of the family, they want to save you money on your meat and groceries. Fairway has fresh cut meats, seafood, cheese, wine, and spirits, and a friendly staff that's always ready to help you find what you need. Stop by Fairway Meat Market today to plan your weekly meals in the Rockledge Square Shopping Center, just south of 84th and Van Dorn.
Rashawn Jackson here for Bauer Infrastructure, a veteran-owned local company proudly serving Lincoln, Lancaster County, and the surrounding areas. Bauer provides quality work at an affordable price, and they're growing rapidly. If you want to experience a career with a fast-paced, family-friendly environment, visit BauerInfrastructure.com. They have top-of-the-line benefits, year-round work, even through the winter. Bauer, usher in the new era of infrastructure to an area near you. And as always, go Big Red.
Back to the Corner 3 on 93.7 The Ticket. Here is your host, Austin Oerman.
All right, let's get back after it here on the Corner 3 podcast. We're going through top 30 NBA draft picks from national champions from the year 2000 on. I am your host, Austin Oerman. Drop a follow on Twitter at Austin_Oerman. Hit me up any comments, questions, concerns that you might have. We went through 2021 to 2025's team, 2016 to 2019 plus Mateen Cleaves, and then 2011 to 2015. We are now down to the first 10 national champions from 2001 on. We'll go to 2006 to 2010 first, doing this reverse chronologically. 2010, you throw Nolan Smith in there from Duke. Kyle Singler, not a first-round pick. Lance Thomas, not a first-round pick either. 2009, Carolina, you give the nod to Tyler Hansbrough. Plenty more good players to come from that Carolina team off the bench, but you don't argue with Psycho T. Do not like him. Not a lot of respect for him as a basketball player, but you look at the resume, you look at how good that Carolina team was. Yeah, you got to go with Tyler Hansbrough. Then you look at 2008 Kansas, one of the more dramatic national champions in recent memory. A lot of places you could go with this one, right? I mentioned Cole Aldrich before. Darrell Arthur, also a first-round pick off that team. But I think as I look at team construction, this team needs a guard, bigger two-wing type of shooter. So I got to go with Brandon Rush, who's a 40% three-point shooter. Mid-teens, I think, scorer for Kansas in that season. I forgot how much of a baller Brandon Rush was in college. I was less than familiar with his game, but he is a worthy addition to this squad. And then we get back-to-back Florida teams, right? We had back-to-back for UConn with Stephon Castle and Donovan Clingan in the mix. From these Florida teams, you have four players that you can go with. The two that I put on the bench, Joakim Noah and Maurice Spates, right? Spates was really young on that team, developed into a first-round pick by the Sixers later on. So I think Joakim Noah would have been a lot of people's picks for one of these spots. But I think he and Tyler Hansbrough are a little redundant in terms of their skill sets. I would say Joakim Noah is certainly the better defender over Tyler Hansbrough. But there's another Florida big man that I'm gonna take here from the 2007 team, and that's Al Horford. Maybe not the full Al Horford that he grew into in the NBA, but still a really darn good college player. I trust him to hold things down a little bit more on the interior. Good rebounder, solid defender, can match up a little bit on the perimeter. And that means then from 2006 Florida, I'm taking Corey Brewer. I think this team needed another guard. You got three guys that can all put the ball in the basket in Brewer, Rush, and Smith. Not a lot of passing going on in that starting lineup. I think Nolan Smith can do it. I think Corey Brewer can do it. But all three of those guards are there to get shots up, which maybe makes Tyler Hansbrough not the best pick from that team. But again, you can't argue against his resume. You trust these guys to figure it out. And Al Horford's going to make the right play. So then we go through the bench guys, right? I gave you the options there from Kansas and Darrell Arthur and Cole Aldrich. And then from Florida in Joakim Noah and Maurice Spates. We're pretty front court heavy with those guys. From the Duke team that won the title in 2010, Mason Plumlee, far and away the best of the Plumlee brothers in college and then also in the NBA as well. And then three other top 30 picks on that Carolina title team from 2009, Wayne Ellington, Ty Lawson, and Ed Davis. I did consider throwing Ty Lawson in there to run point for team construction, because then I could have Nolan Smith at the 2, Ty Lawson at the 1, Brandon Rush at the 3, Al Horford at the 4, and then I could throw Joakim Noah in there at the 5. But the second that I don't include Tyler Hansbrough in a list like this, I mean, one of the best college basketball resumes of all time, the amount of winning and stats that he put up, you can't move Tyler Hansbrough out of your starting lineup. Even if I would do it, I would be more than happy to do it. But I don't want to get that much blowback for this podcast. It's supposed to be fun. So I will begrudgingly keep Tyler Hansbrough in my starting lineup, even if it's not the way I would necessarily build my team ideally. Then we get to 2001 to 2005. Again, remember 2000, Mateen Cleaves ended up going on that 2016 to 2019 team since we didn't have a champion in 2020. So the 2001 to 2005 team is the final team that we'll go over, and it looks like this. From Carolina in 05, Marvin Williams. From UConn in 04, Ben Gordon. From Syracuse in 2003, you got to go with Mello. 2002, Maryland, Juan Dixon. And then 2001, Duke. There were some decisions to make here, and I ended up going with Shane Battier. We'll start with this Duke team. The other two guys that went in the top 30 from that team that beat Arizona were Jay Williams and Mike Dunleavy Jr. I think Jay Williams is a better player than Juan Dixon, but if I didn't go with Juan Dixon, not sure there would have been much else working for Maryland and in terms of the team construction. So in terms of a true point guard, yeah, I could get a bucket, but still a good passer. Had to have Juan Dixon at the 1. Mike Dunleavy was a good scoring wing, good piece on that team, but come on. Mello had a top 5, maybe top 3 one and done season ever, of course, culminating in that national championship. So I had to have him there on the list. I did go with Ben Gordon, the guard, over Emeka Okafor and Charlie Villanueva. Probably should slot Emeka Okafor into that starting lineup just to get some more size. You know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to make another late swap. So I'm going to end up moving Emeka Okafor as the starter into that lineup because I need a center. Ben Gordon will end up moving to the bench. He's alongside teammate Charlie Villanueva on that roster as well. And then Marvin Williams, right? He'll probably end up playing the 3 for me. So Shane Battier will be the 4 in this lineup. Wait, no, I need a shooting guard. What am I doing? Do I need to make another change here? Maybe what I need to do. Let me think this through a little bit more. We're doing this live on air. I put this together not necessarily in a hurry, but I took sometimes just the highest drafted guy, sometimes the guy I thought was the best player. It's going to be really hard for me to want to change this team, though, even if it's not necessarily huge. You know what I might end up doing? What I might end up doing is, yeah, I think I got to move Marvin Williams to the bench potentially is what I have to end up doing here for this team. I mean, Marvin Williams at 6'9". Yeah, I don't really need more of that in my starting lineup. So what's going to happen is I'm moving Marvin Williams to my bench, and I'm putting Rashad McCants in the starting lineup there from that 2005 Carolina team. So the new 2001 to 2005 team looks like this. Rashad McCants at shooting guard, Emeka Okafor at center, Carmelo Anthony playing the small forward position, Juan Dixon playing point guard, and Shane Battier playing power forward. Yeah, I like that a lot better. I think that team makes a bunch more sense. And I know Emeka Okafor really flamed out in the NBA, but dude was a monster in college. And we don't talk enough about him. I mean, it was 20 plus years ago now, but Emeka Okafor was balling for that UConn team. So in 2004, that was his junior season, played and started all 36 games, shot 60% from the floor, 52% from the free throw line is all. But that's a guy that averaged 17.5 points per game, led the Big East in rebounding with 11.5 a game, and led the entire country in block shots with 4.1 a game, which was actually down from his previous season as a sophomore when he blocked almost 5 shots per game, up at 4.7. But no, I think that this roster, this lineup ends up making a lot more sense. So at the end of the day, when I look through these teams, we'll go through them now in reverse order that we picked them. 2001 to 2005, I think, is going to be pretty tough to beat. You get that ball handler in Juan Dixon. You get Rashad McCants to shoot and score in the backcourt as well. Obviously, Mello is going to be the leading scorer on this team. He's a bucket. You get Shane Battier, who was kind of that glue guy for that 2001 Duke team. Smart, versatile defender, can step out and hit the spot-up threes, especially from the corner. And then Emeka Okafor locking things down in the middle. Really like that 2001-2005 starting lineup. Has a really deep bench as well. Again, 12 guys are on that bench that I can go to really mix and match. 2006 to 2010, I think this is just a bunch of winners, right? Bunch of gritty, grimy sort of winners, personified, of course, by Tyler Hansbrough. You get some scoring splash with Nolan Smith and Brandon Rush. You get your next age sort of Shane Battier and Al Horford. And Corey Brewer, I think, is going to end up playing a little bit out of position, but he and Nolan Smith can split ball handling duties. Isn't perfect, might not be pretty, but I think it's going to end up being fine. Again, if I was going to change this lineup at all, I might throw a true point guard in Ty Lawson into the mix. I might bench Tyler Hansbrough, and then I could put Corey Brewer on the bench and bring Joakim Noah into the starting lineup for some more height. But I'm not going to do that. So I like just the upperclassman veteran leadership, the winning plays, pretty good shooting as well from 2006 to 2010. 2011 to 2015, you get, Cardiac Kemba, the clutch. You get maybe the best interior defender that college basketball has ever seen in Anthony Davis. Role guy, rebounder, defense, and Gorgie Jang. Secondary creation, shooting, scoring, and Shabazz Napier, and your Swiss Army knife in Justice Winslow. 2016 to 2019 is probably the group that inspires me the least. Not exactly sure how this team is going to win games, right? Mateen Cleaves will have to do a lot for this team on offense. Maybe Justin Jackson can get some buckets for him. I like Hunter and Hart defensively. Spellman as a stretch 4.5 or a stretch 5 for this lineup is pretty solid, but doesn't exactly inspire you to say, oh my goodness, yeah, this team's absolutely going to run away with a title. It's a good team. It's not necessarily what I would consider a great team. Then 2021 to 2025, and having some off-air conversations with people, this group, the most recent champions, might be the most difficult group to score on in the entire field. I mean, if you're putting Walter Clayton Jr., Davion Mitchell, and Stephon Castle all in the same backcourt playing 3 guards, that's pretty tough. Now, Walter Clayton Jr., not an elite defender, could do it when he was engaged. I think he's going to get picked on quite a bit. But you can put Davion Mitchell and Stephon Castle on a team that has 2 good shot-creating guards like 2011, 2015. Take your chances with it. You put Agbaji on a 2 or a 3 to shut down a wing scorer. I like the look of that. And then you can funnel everything to Kling Kong, as his nickname was in college, in Donovan Clingan. I'm going to pull up his stats just so I don't speak out of turn. But I think Donovan Clingan, over his 2 years at UConn, he averaged right about 2 blocks a season both years, 1.8 as a freshman, of course, splitting time with Adama Sanogo, and then 2024 averaged 2.5 blocks per game as well as the starting center for that team. So, yeah, it's really hard for me to not say this is the best defensive team in the field. Now, they're going to ask a lot of Walter Clayton Jr. offensively, right? A lot of 1-5 pick and roll, I think, with Clayton Jr. and Donovan Clingan. Maybe you can get Castle going on the second side. Davion Mitchell was really good at Baylor. I don't know how much I trust his offensive game, especially because there will maybe be more asked of him than there was at Baylor during that title run. But I think that's a fun team. End of the day, you ask me to rank these 2 teams. I think that it's pretty clear the 2016 to 2019 group will come in last place, even if you add Mateen Cleaves to it. I think that's an okay team of top 30 picks from national champions. I don't think that's a killer team. I would probably end up going with 2021 to 2025 as the 4th best team. Best defense, I'm just really worried about the offense. And there's not that deep of a bench, and it's only 1 guard. So you really need Clingan and Agbaji to stay out of foul trouble. You're asking a lot out of Agbaji to guard some 4s sometimes as well, unless you really think Stephon Castle can do it, can hang consistently, which I don't. If they run into a team that's led by a solid backcourt, I like 21 to 25, but they are certainly, I would say, the least matchup proof of any of these units. I'm going to throw 2006 to 2010 in 3rd. I like the starting lineup. They have a lot of front court depth off the bench. I think this 2006 to 2010 team could be a nightmare matchup over the course of a 40-minute game, or if we played a series between 2006 to 2010 and the most recent 21 to 25 group. I think 26 to 2010 could do some damage. But I'm just not quite as inspired by that list of names in the fit as I am with the last two teams. As I look at it on paper, it's really hard to argue against the 2001 to 2005 team. I mean, Dixon and Anthony did things that their schools haven't done since in leading them to a national title. Juan Dixon, I think, was underappreciated in terms of best players on title teams. Melo was Melo. I'm a big Shane Battier guy, college through the NBA. Emeka Okafor, one of the best rim protectors we've ever seen in college basketball. And then Rashad McCants, right in there for Marvin Williams, I think rounds out that team really, really nicely. But I'm going to be a product of my age and of my era. And it's going to be really, really hard for me to pick against that 2011 to 2015 team. Sure, it's sentimental. Yes, this was really my coming of age into the college basketball sphere. And I understand that. I know it's showing. But I got to be true to myself. I got to be true to who I am and how I see the game of basketball. I like Kemba Walker more than I like Juan Dixon. I think Rashad McCants gets the edge over Shabazz Napier, but Shabazz had his moments. I think obviously Carmelo Anthony and Justice Winslow, you give the nod to Carmelo Anthony, but I think Winslow knows his role a little bit better on this team. In terms of the defense, if he knows that it's his job to make life tough for Melo, Melo will get his. But I think Winslow was another guy that was an underrated clutch player. Think about what he did for Duke there in that South Regional, hitting some really big shots against Utah and Gonzaga, I believe would have been those two games that Duke played down there. So I'm a big Justice Winslow guy. Gorgie Jang will know his role. I think he can match up and take Battier and or Anthony at some times. And then Anthony Davis, right? As good a rim protector as Emeka Okafor was, and I do not want to sell him short. Anthony Davis was Anthony Davis. Anthony freaking Davis. 14 points and 10 rebounds per game, playing all 40 games, 32 minutes per game. He also averaged 4.7 blocks as a freshman on that team, 65% from two, 71% from the free throw line. I mean, he averaged 6 combined steals and blocks per game and only 2 fouls per game, being that last line of defense for that Kentucky championship winning team. I will take one and done Anthony Davis over Emeka Okafor in this matchup. And I think it's that rim protection. I think it's the clutch shot making from Kemba Walker. And dare I say, my love for Justice Winslow that has me picking that 2011 to 15 version of champions picked in the top 30 over 2001 to 2005. But I think if you play a game between those two squads, I think it comes down to the wire. We might hit overtime. You play a series, it probably goes 7. I really believe that. Now, 2001 to 2005 is deeper in terms of picks in the top 30, but I do like the quality of pick, even though 2011 to 15 only had half as many guys on the bench. I really like Tyus Jones as the backup point guard coming in off the bench over Raymond Felton. Jahlil Okafor was a beast his 1 year in college right before the game shifted more and more to the perimeter. I mean, Jahlil Okafor dominated plenty of games for Duke in the ACC. I think he could give Emeka Okafor some buckets, Hakeem Warwick as well. Grayson Allen coming in off the bench. I think he and Ben Gordon ended up comparable in terms of value in their college careers. Don't quote me on that. Again, I don't want to be a homer. Ben Gordon's definitely the better overall player, but Grayson Allen was absolutely a bucket in his time at Duke. Terrence Jones, Marquise Teague, Michael Kidd, Gilchrist, that's depth in the backcourt and a little bit in the front court as well. So I'm going to go with 2011 to 2015. If you pick 2001 to 2005, you can tell me I'm wrong. I'm happy to be wrong. I'd be really curious to know if anyone picks the Nolan Smith, Tyler Hansbrough, Brandon Rush, Al Horford, Corey Brewer team, or the Walter Clayton Jr., Stephon Castle, Donovan Clingan, Ochai Agbaji, Davion Mitchell team. If you think those teams are the best, let me know. If you agree that it's 2011 to 2015 or 2001 to 2005, let me know which one you take. I'm sure I'll get a Twitter pull up. In fact, I might just create that as soon as I'm done recording here to make sure that goes up on Friday, because I would be fascinated to see the results. Those are my thoughts on the top 30 draft picks from college basketball's champions since the year 2000. Really looking forward to seeing what those Twitter polls have to say. When we get back, Matt Norlander went through some data on CBS Sports, why NCAA tournament expansion is a bad idea, as some committees are meeting and going over that very topic this week. I'm Austin Oerman. Final segment of the Corner 3 after this.
Lincoln's new craft cocktail lounge is Bar 48 in Lincoln. Located at 2639 North 48th Street, Bar 48 offers everything from cocktails to beer to wine and so much more. With summer right around the corner, you can always enjoy Bar 48's frozen beverages. Follow them on Facebook to stay up to date on their live music performances every Saturday night. Make plans to visit Bar 48 on North 48th Street in the heart of the University Place neighborhood today.
A1 Automotive's second location is now open at 5110 State Hill Drive, just off of Yankee Hill Road. The new location continues to specialize in all makes and models and provides personalized service as they have for 15 years. To honor the new store opening, A1 is offering $25 off any service over $300, $50 off services over $500, and $75 off services that total over $750, all through July 31st. Schedule your appointment today at a1autolincoln.com and visit their new location in South Lincoln at 5110 State Hill Drive.
Step into healing at Prairie Orthopedic and Plastic Surgery. Our team of top-notch medical professionals turns pain into progress with state-of-the-art treatments and compassionate care. Visit prairieortho.com and discover the difference in quality orthopedic and plastic surgery services tailored to your unique needs. Your health matters, and Prairie Orthopedic and Plastic Surgery is dedicated to helping you thrive. Reach your full potential. Embrace a better tomorrow with Prairie Orthopedic and Plastic Surgery.
Back to the Corner 3 on 93.7 The Ticket. Here is your host, Austin Oerman.
Let's wrap things up here on the Corner 3. I am your host, Austin Oerman. Thanks a ton for being along for the ride. Let's put the final nail in the coffin for NCAA tournament expansion. Big thanks to Matt Norlander of CBS Sports for his article and his thought on how this should look and why it's a bad idea. So I'll make sure I link the article in the show notes. It's a really good one from Matt Norlander. And there are a couple main arguments that he's going to try and debunk, from proponents of expanding to potentially 72, maybe to 76, and please never let 96 see the light of day. But Norlander's first point, expansion has never been about access. So when you think access, you think more teams in the tournament, obviously, right? But how does that access get expanded? Is it to more Power 5 schools? Is it to more mid-majors? That question has never been answered. Of course, most of those bids would likely end up going to teams in the power conferences. So Norlander's first point is 40 years ago, 64 out of 282 teams played in the NCAA tournament back in 1985. That's good for 22.7% of all schools in Division I college basketball that qualified for the tournament, so still less than 1 in 4. But last year, 364 teams in D1, 68 invitations. That's 18.7%. And so Norlander says every team responsible for that 4-point percentage gap over 40 years is a mid or low major program. Schools not taking away bids from your four conferences, pushing expansion, ACC, Big 10, Big 12, and SEC. He says this: consider there have been 91 D1 teams added since 84-85, and 6 of them have since defected from Division I. Those 91 teams have combined for a total of 168 NCAA tournament bids, less than 2 per team. Okay, so of those 168 bids, how many of those have been at-larges? How many of those 168 were not conference tournament or conference champions? 1. 1 out of 168, and over the 40 years, 1 out of over 1,400 overall at-large bids have come from this group of 91 or now 85 schools. Think about that. Only UCF in 2019, team that pushed top-seeded Duke to the brink in the second round, only that 2019 UCF team earned an at-large bid as one of those 85 schools that has been added to Division I since 84-85. Now, that was a part of the American Athletic Conference that year that was really good. you had a 4-bid AAC that year. Houston was 33-4 overall, 16-2 in conference. Cincinnati got the auto bid by winning the conference tournament. They end up 28-7. Temple and UCF were both 13-5 in American Conference play. They both made it. Temple went 23-10. UCF went 24-9. So, yeah, maybe not a power conference, but certainly a powerful enough conference in its own right. But again, UCF is the only team that out of those 85 has taken an at-large bid since 84-85. That's crazy. Norlander goes on to say this: 2,520 games have been played in the NCAA tournament, the field of 64 and beyond, since 1985. Of those 85 schools added since 85, how many of them have won a first round game, so round of 64 or later, out of 2,520 games? 19 times has a team added since 1985 won even a single game in the round of 64 or beyond. You go back to 97, it happened twice, Charleston and Coppin State. 2001, Hampton. 2007, Winthrop. 2012, Norfolk State, beating Missouri. Florida Gulf Coast making its run to the Sweet 16. Dunk City, of course, most known for its win over Georgetown. You had Stephen F. Austin do it twice, first in 2014, then in 2016. You had the win for UMBC over Virginia as the 16 over 1. They did it in 2018. 3 first-timers in 2019, Liberty, UCF, and Wofford won games. Florida Atlantic in 2023, then Grand Canyon and Oakland in 2024. And those are all the schools that have won a game in the round of 64 and have not been in D1 since before 84-85. That's pretty crazy. Those schools, those 85 schools, have a winning percentage of .176 in the NCAA tournament. 36 and 168 overall, even when you factor in the play-in and the first 4 before the round of 68. That's pretty crazy. You look at this from Norlander as well, laying it out maybe a little simpler. Only one school added to Division I in the last 40 years has won games in multiple NCAA tournaments, Stephen F. Austin. Only 2 teams, Florida Gulf Coast and Florida Atlantic, have reached the Sweet 16. And Norlander wraps up that part by saying, these schools haven't affected high major access one bit. They're all chasing the same number of automatic bids there were in 1985, with the overwhelming majority of these schools seated between number 14 and 16. The math is stark, dark, and obvious. The teams that have been added over the past 4+ decades into D1 have not brought about any tangible additional challenges to qualifying for the field. They've simply been added to the same pool of mid and low majors that are all fighting for auto bids almost 100% of the time. That's the lens to view expansion through. If you told me more of these teams would reach the NCAA tournament, you'd still have a hard time, but you could talk me into getting more mid-majors into the NCAA tournament. But when you say expansion is about access as a proponent for increasing the size of the NCAA tournament, you're talking about more high major bids. Teams that have had zero problems, as the data points out, acquiring bids since 84-85 when these schools have been added. Not necessary. Here's the next point. High majors are taking more bids than ever, Norlander writes, looking at a 10 tournament sample size. Over the past 10 NCAA tournaments, there have been 362 at-large bids. Here's a list of every league to receive an at-large bid since 2015. AAC, A10, ACC, Big East, Big 10, Big 12, Mo Valley, Mountain West, Ohio Valley, Pac-12, SEC, WCC. Okay, so 12 conferences represented in at-large bids. He says of the 362 at-large bids, 304 of them, 83% of them, went to schools in a power conference. That's 58 bids for, the non-power conferences. More than 4 out of every 5 at-large berths went to those Power 5 conferences, and that's just over the last decade. The only conferences outside the high majors to earn at least 3 at-large bids in the past 10 NCAA tournaments are the Mountain West, who's done it the last 4 years, and the American Conference in 2015, 2016. And then don't forget, he points out, the Mountain West is going away as we know it in less than a year. Of course, it'll be reformed, right? We got some news today at the time of the recording that Grand Canyon is jumping from the WAC to the Mountain West a year earlier than intended, so I think that's a pretty fun move. But then this is pretty stark from Norlander as well. Access for the power conferences has not been an issue. Trend lines only continue to work in their favor, as those leagues now occupy a higher percentage of teams than ever before. This was emphatically proven last season by the SEC and Big Ten, which sent a combined 22 of 34 teams to last year's NCAA tournament. The Big Ten and the SEC took over half of the at-large spots in last year's tournament. That's kind of crazy, right? And again, it's the ACC, it's the SEC, it's the Big 12, it's the Big Ten pushing for more expansion, not smaller conferences. He goes on to make some more arguments about how going to 76, that's been probably the most common number, has the potential to maybe dull the lead up to Selection Sunday, especially if you look at conference tournaments there as well. And then you think about the bracket itself, right? This is a soft argument for it, but one that I think is worth considering is that there's something just so easily accessible about a 64 or 68 team bracket. You think about the deadline for most places not being on Tuesday by the play-ins. You think about it being on Thursday, 11:59 Eastern, before tip-off of the first game. You think about as a kid sitting down to do your first bracket, it's not confusing. It's straightforward. It's intuitive to fill out. You don't have to do some fancy finagling in your head. You don't have to try to rack your brain to figure out how a tournament like that works. You would only add more confusion for either ors, right? Do you take the winner of Xavier, Texas in the first round? Do you take the winner of Xavier or Texas in the second round without really knowing who that matchup is or having a real prediction on who it could be? For something as simple as one of the introductory tools to college basketball, certainly going to games in person, yes, watching games on TV, but think about how many non-college basketball fans sit down, fill out a bracket, part of an office pool, part of a family pool, maybe just doing it for kicks, and that's their introduction to college basketball. We don't need to make it more convoluted. We don't need to make it crazier. We don't need to lean even more into the gambling aspect just for more mediocre basketball, right? If you're 18 and 12, you're 19 and 11, you don't need another chance to get into the NCAA tournament. You had 30, 31, now 32 games, as we talked about a couple weeks ago, to prove that you are worthy of inclusion in the NCAA tournament. If you haven't done it by then, I don't want you there. I don't want you messing with something that's not broken. I don't want you looking to try to be the solution to a problem that doesn't exist. Like I said, I'll link Norlander's article in the description, but I wanted to give my thoughts on some of his main overview points, and we will call that an episode there. Really fun one. Again, be on the lookout for the Twitter poll. Be on the lookout for the article that Matt Norlander wrote. I'll put those on my personal Twitter at Austin_Oerman. Head over there, check those out, vote in the poll, read the article. It's really fantastic. Thank you so much for listening to The Corner 3. By the time you hear this, I will be about halfway through vacation. I will be traveling home over the weekend, back for normal shows on Monday, and a fun episode lined up for you again a week from today. Thanks a ton for listening to The Corner 3. This is Austin Oerman signing off. We'll talk again soon.